I'm typing this with shaking hands because I need someone, anyone, to understand what I've done to myself. 3 hours ago, I was texting my coworker Marcus about meeting up one more time while my husband David made breakfast for our 2 kids downstairs. Now I'm sitting in a hotel room because David found the messages and told me not to come home tonight. I've been married to David for 8 years. Good marriage. Stable. He's the type who remembers to buy my favorite coffee without being asked and never forgot a single school pickup. But somewhere along the way, I convinced myself I was missing out on something. My single friends kept posting about their exciting dates and adventures. Instagram made everyone else's life look electric while mine felt beige. Marcus started at my accounting firm 6 months ago. Tall, charming, the kind of guy who made jokes in meetings that actually landed. When he complimented my presentation, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Desired. Seen. Important. It started with coffee runs that turned into long conversations about our dreams and frustrations. He listened when I complained about David's predictability, how we'd fallen into routines that felt more like roommates than lovers. I told myself we were just friends. Even when the texts got flirtier. Even when I started wearing makeup to work again and buying new clothes. Even when I lied about working late so we could grab drinks. The first time he kissed me in the parking garage, I pulled away and said it couldn't happen again. But I didn't block his number. I didn't tell David. I just let the guilt eat at me while the excitement kept pulling me back. The physical affair started 3 weeks ago at his apartment. I told David the first was at book club. While I was undressing for another man, my husband was probably helping Emma with her homework and reading bedtime stories to Jake. The contrast should have stopped me cold, but I was too deep in the fantasy that this was what I deserved. That I was finally living. Marcus made me feel like the main character in my own life again. He told me I was too smart and beautiful to be stuck in suburban monotony. That David didn't appreciate what he had. Every word fed the narrative I'd been building in my head for months. I started looking at my husband differently, cataloging his flaws instead of his strengths. How he left dishes in the sink sometimes. How he fell asleep during movies. How he never surprised me anymore. I began pulling away from the kids too. When Emma wanted to show me her drawings, I'd glance up from my phone where I was texting Marcus. When Jake asked me to play with him, I'd suggest he ask Daddy instead. I was physically present but emotionally checked out, living for the next time I could see Marcus. I convinced myself they wouldn't notice, that kids were resilient, that I could compartmentalize. The lies multiplied like cancer. Late meetings. Client dinners. Weekend workshops. David never questioned any of it because he trusted me completely. That trust felt like chains instead of love. I resented him for not being suspicious, for not fighting for me, for not somehow sensing that I was slipping away. In my twisted logic, his faith in me became evidence that he didn't really know me at all. Last night Marcus and I were at his place when he casually mentioned that his ex-wife had called him boring too, right before she cheated on him. The irony hit me like ice water. Here I was, having an affair with a man whose marriage ended the exact same way. But instead of seeing the red flag, I told myself our situation was different. That what we had was real. This morning David was making pancakes when my phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. I was upstairs getting dressed and heard him call my name in a voice I'd never heard before. Flat. Empty. When I came downstairs, he was holding my phone, reading the message thread with Marcus. Messages about last night. About how I couldn't wait to see him again. About how David would never satisfy me the way Marcus did. David looked at me like he was seeing a stranger. Emma and Jake were eating their pancakes, completely unaware that their world was about to shatter. He handed me the phone and said, "Pack a bag. We'll talk when the kids aren't here." His voice was so controlled it scared me more than screaming would have. I tried to explain, to minimize, to blame it on feeling neglected. But David just stood there, not arguing, not fighting for us, just waiting for me to leave. The man who had loved me unconditionally for nearly a decade was looking through me like I'd already ceased to exist. As I threw clothes into a suitcase, I could hear him on the phone with his sister, asking if he could bring the kids over for the day. When I came back downstairs, Emma asked why Mommy was crying and carrying a suitcase. I couldn't answer her. David told them they were going to Aunt Sarah's for a fun playdate. The last thing David said to me was, "I need you to understand something. This isn't a break. This isn't something we worked through. This is over. My lawyer will contact you about custody arrangements." Then he walked out with our children, and I was left standing in the kitchen where he'd made me coffee every morning for 8 years. I called Marcus, crying, expecting comfort and support. He didn't answer. When he finally texted back hours later, it was to say his ex-wife had been right about him after all, and maybe we should take a break while I figured things out with my marriage. The man I destroyed my family for had vanished the second things got complicated. That's when it hit me. I wasn't the main character in some romantic story. I was just another cheating spouse who threw away everything real for something fake. And now I'm alone in this hotel room, realizing that the life I thought was boring was actually the life I wanted all along. It's been 3 months since David found those messages, and I'm writing this from my childhood bedroom at my parents' house. I'm 34 years old, sleeping in the same twin bed I had in high school, because it turns out destroying your marriage also destroys your credit when you can't afford the mortgage alone. David filed for divorce immediately and got a restraining order after I showed up at the house drunk, banging on the door and begging him to let me see the kids. That moment is burned into my memory. Emma's terrified face in the upstairs window. Jake crying in David's arms. My neighbors recording everything on their phones. The police officer who looked at me with pure disgust as he explained I couldn't come within 500 feet of my own home. I get supervised visitation every other Saturday for 3 hours. A court-appointed supervisor sits in the corner of a sterile room while I try to rebuild relationships with children who now flinch when I reach for them. Emma asked me last week why I chose the bad man over Daddy. I didn't have an answer that wouldn't destroy her more than I already have. Jake barely speaks to me now. He started calling David's sister Mama Sarah, and it feels like a knife in my chest every time. The worst part isn't even losing them. It's seeing how much better they're doing without me. David moved in with his sister temporarily, and the kids have stability again. Emma's teacher told the court supervisor that her grades improved dramatically once the home stress was removed. My own daughter is thriving because I'm not there to poison her environment with my chaos and lies. Work became impossible. The affair with Marcus was an open secret within a week. HR couldn't fire me for adultery, but they found plenty of other reasons. Productivity issues. Unprofessional conduct. Missing client deadlines because I was too busy planning hookups. I was escorted out with a box of personal items while former colleagues watched through glass doors, whispering behind their hands. Marcus? He blocked me on everything and started dating the new marketing coordinator before my desk was even cleared out. I heard through mutual friends that he told everyone I was unstable and came on too strong. The man who convinced me to blow up my life for him now acts like I'm a cautionary tale he barely escaped. I found out later that he'd done this exact same thing at his previous job. I wasn't special. I was just next. My friends evaporated one by one. The married ones couldn't trust me around their husbands anymore. The single ones got tired of my constant self-pity and drama. Sarah, my best friend since college, told me point blank that she couldn't watch me destroy everything good in my life and still pretend to support me. She said I'd become someone she didn't recognize, and maybe that person needed to hit rock bottom to find her way back to being human. Social media became a torture device. David doesn't post much, but when he does, it's photos of him and the kids at baseball games, at the zoo, building blanket forts. They look genuinely happy. Lighter. I realized that I'd been the weight dragging them all down for months before the affair even started. My emotional absence had been stealing their joy long before I physically left. My parents took me in because they're good people, but I can see the disappointment in their eyes every day. They raised me better than this. My mom keeps asking what happened to the daughter who used to call every Sunday and send videos of the grandkids. I want to tell her that daughter got lost somewhere in Instagram comparisons and workplace fantasies, but the truth is I murdered her slowly with 1,000 selfish choices. I started therapy because the court mandated it, but also because the silence in my head was becoming unbearable. Dr. Martinez doesn't let me wallow in self-pity. She makes me face the fact that I didn't just have an affair. I emotionally abandoned my children. I betrayed the person who loved me most. I chose excitement over security and lost both. She says healing starts with accountability, but some bridges can't be rebuilt even after you acknowledge you burned them down. The loneliness is crushing. Not just being alone, but knowing I chose this isolation. Every night when I was sneaking around with Marcus, David was home putting our kids to bed, probably wondering why I seemed so distant. While I was getting validation from another man, my husband was still buying my favorite coffee and planning our anniversary dinner. He loved me right up until the moment he found those messages. And I threw it away for someone who disappeared the second I needed him. I apply for jobs every day, but my reputation in this town is destroyed. The story of the accountant who left her family for a coworker who dumped her immediately spread through professional networks like wildfire. My LinkedIn requests go unanswered. My references are awkward phone calls where former colleagues try to be polite while clearly wanting to end the conversation. Sometimes I drive past the elementary school where Emma and Jake go, hoping to catch a glimpse of them at recess. I know it's pathetic and probably illegal, but the supervised visits aren't enough to satisfy the maternal ache that threatens to kill me some days. I created this distance, but knowing that doesn't make it hurt less. It makes it hurt more. David won't speak to me except through lawyers. I wrote him a 10-page letter apologizing, explaining, begging for another chance. His attorney sent back a one-line response: further contact will be considered harassment. The man who once promised to love me forever now treats me like I'm dangerous. And maybe I am. Maybe someone who could destroy her own family so carelessly can't be trusted with anyone's heart. The affair was never about Marcus or feeling underappreciated or needing excitement. It was about me being too cowardly to appreciate what I had while I had it. I convinced myself I deserved more when I already had everything. A husband who came home every night. Children who thought I hung the moon. A stable life that thousands of people would kill for. I traded all of that for 3 weeks of hotel rooms and lies that evaporated the moment reality came knocking. I see other families now and feel like I'm looking through glass at a life I used to have but can never access again. At the grocery store, at restaurants, in parks. Moms pushing strollers while talking on the phone with their husbands about dinner plans. Dads teaching their kids to ride bikes while moms cheer from the sidelines. I had all of that and convinced myself it wasn't enough. There's no happy ending to this story. No moment where David forgives me and we rebuild our family stronger than before. No reconnection with my children that heals the damage I've done to their ability to trust. No career comeback that restores my reputation. Some mistakes don't get fixed. Some bridges don't get rebuilt. Some consequences are permanent. If you're reading this and thinking about cheating on someone who loves you, let me save you the trouble, it's not worth it. That excitement you're craving will last exactly as long as it takes your life to fall apart. The person tempting you away from your family will disappear the moment you actually need them. And the life you think is boring will reveal itself to be irreplaceable only after you've destroyed it completely. I had everything I ever wanted and I threw it away for nothing at all.